everyone. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make lovely and quirky hand embroidery kits. So thanks for joining me tonight. I'm here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, and it's a time where we can relax and craft together for about an hour. And we typically work from projects from beginning to end. So we are working on the grandfather clock piece, the block from the Splendid Sampler 2 book. We're doing the Splendid Sampler 2 quilt along that's happening right now. If you go to the Splendid Sampler on Facebook, you can check out the group there, see all the blocks that everyone is working on. We are doing the foundation paper pieced grandfather clock block. There we are. So we are getting pretty far along here. So I'm going to flip you around and show you the pieces, but this is what we're doing. We're doing foundation paper piecing, where we have the pattern on the back, and the block is divided into sections. So we have, this is the A section. So we have all these crazy pieces that we're sewing, and all those pieces form into actual shapes. So all these straight lines of sewing end up being like this crazy puzzle piece that looks like magic. I love it so much. So this is foundation paper piecing. Be sure to check the videos over on YouTube at Penguin and Fish Movies if you want to see the whole process for this block, because we are well along here, and this is definitely the most difficult part here is the part A. So we are all the way on block H today, or section H. So we're moving along here, you guys. Let's see. We have to pick some fabric actually for this section. We haven't picked quite all our fabric yet. So that is step number 1. So all right, guys, I'm going to flip you around and we'll get going tonight. Thanks again for joining me. See y'all popping in. All right, so there's our full clock so far. Here's where we left off last night. All of the sections that we have completed. We did all of this last night. So I mean, you know, some of these hardly have anything. This is just a square, so not much to do in that that part. But here we are. So we're cooking along here. It's looking like it's becoming something. So, all right, so next up, here's our collection of what we have left. We have it clipped in order here. So, all right, up next is section H. And section H goes, I think, ultimately right here. I mean, when this all is sewn together, it'll all kind of shrink up a little bit. But we're working on that section that has the pendulum here. So the pendulum is actually appliqued later, that circle, but it's this shape, this kind of rectangle that includes all this inner section. It includes the little pendulum, what would we call that? I don't know, the little hanger thing there. That's probably the pendulum, and this is probably the weight. I don't know. The weight for the pendulum? I don't know. There's probably some real life terms for these, I'm sure. We even have like these little triangles in the bottom. So it's this rectangle that we're going to start out with tonight. So, all right. So there you go. You can kind of picture it there. Like there's that pendulum bar and then those triangles. So we got our little square here. So, all right. Section H. So each of these have an H. Each piece has an H in front of it because they're all part of section H. And we're going to start with number 1. We're going to sew in order. So H1, H2, H3, 4, 5, and 6. That's the order we're going to go in here. So H1 is not part of our color coding system. That was the one little bit that we kind of left to this point before we were going to choose. So I'm going to scooch this up. We need to choose a color. It's going to go on top of this kind of pale gold color. And I thought maybe this whole section could be goldish. I do kind of like in the example, like how it's like this dark blue and then there's that lighter blue. So this whole section is special. And she did she did this too. The green kind of goes in with this. Oh, the bob is the circle and the bar is the pendulum. Okay, nice, Carol. See, so the bar is the pendulum and bob is the circle. Is it really bob? Or is it really called a bob, or is that like a typo? I'm not sure. Carol, that'd be awesome. So the bob and the pendulum. All right, so I kind of was thinking, let's see, I'm going to grab some of my fabric here. You know, I do have some in the orangey yellow arena. Let's see what else. You know, so I got a lot of kind of orangey yellows, and then the rest are all these kind of more tan colors. So since this is kind of yellow, we're going to, I think it'd be fun to use kind of one of these orangey colors for the pendulum. And I think I'll use the same color for, is it the bob? Okay, so it is. Okay, so the bob and the pendulum. So for the bob, that little circle, I kind of want to use the same color. All right, so let's just try a few here. I like this, but it almost blends in too much. But maybe we're going for that. I don't know. All my stuff is pretty subtle here for this block. Gosh, that even blends in more, doesn't it? I mean, this is going to be so subtle. Is it too subtle? I don't know. Then we have this kind of crazy yellow. There's not much contrast in any of this. Bonnie, it's not a 5. I think this is like 29 or something, or 28. So every 5, what Bonnie's referring to is every 5 blocks, I throw in one of my brights. So every once in a while, I throw in a crazy bright color, bright for my quilt at least. But I'm trying to rein myself in, so I have a rule that I'm only going to do that every like 5 blocks or so, and I don't think this is a 5 blocker, so we are stuck with what we can come up with our neutrals. Which one of these is darker? Gosh, I think it might have to be this guy. Oh, it'd be so subtle though. That's okay though, right? We're making a subtle quilt. We're making like a little blonde quilt. Flowers are always so cute. But yeah, I don't think that'll hardly show up at all. I mean, you know, the only other thing we could do, I mean, ideally we'd want some contrast, right? So, you know, there is this. We are using it for the outside, but that doesn't mean we couldn't reuse it for the inside too. Be a nice way to tie in all our colors again. I don't know. I think I want to go with this. It's just a little dark. It's going to be subtle. But I think it's kind of sweet. Oh, that's a good idea, Robin. Robin says, can you embroider around it a little darker color to make it stand out a little bit? I like that idea. That kind of solves the issue for me, I think. So, all right. On that note, I think I am going to go with this kind of orangey, as dark as I can get orange color. And we will not fix it, but we will push it in the direction we want with embroidery or quilting or something later. We could do like that orange thread around it when we applicate the pendulum or something like that. So, all right, sold me. We're going to do this. Okay, so back to our piece then. I'm going to move all these. I get kind of a little paranoid that I'm going to cut through them when they're on my cutting board like this. So let's just scooch them for the time being. They can live over here. I'm kind of handling them a lot too, but that's okay. All right, so we're just making a tiny decision for this. You know, we spent all that time making the decision for a piece that is like less than an inch and less than a quarter of an inch big. So kind of silly, but I am going to use it for the pendulum as well. So if you're working on this project, you'll see this circle on here. That really has nothing to do with our paper piecing. This is just a placement marker for where we're going to want to put the pendulum or the bob later, the bob for the pendulum. So this is just kind of funny. Did you know, I mean, like on a cuckoo clock, you can move this bob up or down to control how fast your seconds are. I always thought that was neat. We have a little cuckoo clock here, and we always kind of test to see how close that we are for an actual, the right amount of time. The right amount of, make sure our seconds are the right amount. It's kind of like our seam allowance, getting our seam allowance just right. All right, let's flip this so the fabric is facing down. We need a piece that's as big as our H1 plus a pretty generous seam allowance. And by generous, I usually go more than 1/4 of an inch here. So let's just go right here. I'm gonna go like 1/4 inch or like over 1/4 inch down from there. So let's just kind of trim right here. That's looking good. And I'm gonna just go straight up here. Cutting out my little blobs here. You know what? Why didn't I, for a piece this size, I should have looked in my scrap bin. Ah, well, I guess there's plenty of time for using up our scraps. Okay, so for the first piece, we are just going to glue it, glue the back to here. So what we're trying to do, this is going to actually be the wrong side of the piece. So we want to glue it to the wrong side of the fabric, so that when we flip it, then we see the right side. So this is going to be the wrong side, and this is going to be the right side as we work here. So we always have to remember to face our fabric down when we're doing this. So I'm going to just put a little dab of glue on the back of this H1 and then center it within our piece here. Not so much centering, but making sure that we have our generous seam allowance all the way around it. And that's it. H1 is complete. All we have to do for the one pieces on every deal here is just basically glue down a little scrappy scrap. So, all right, that's that. We can move on. That part's done. So moving on, H2 is next. And let's see, we've color-coded that yellow. And I think this is all that kind of pale yellow, but I just want to check. Yep. This is our little key color code for fabric. It's that cute little yellow, pale yellow fabric that we've been using here. So let's get that out. Before we cut the fabric piece, I'm going to do our little thing that we do to clean up our seam allowance, because we just cut a crazy blob here. This is the part of the process where we clean it all up, because we are actually going to end up with absolutely perfect seam allowances in here. So we're going to cover up that H1 piece so it exposes our H2 piece, and we are going to ignore everything else. I'm going to put this right on that line that divides our two pieces, H1 and H2 here. I'm going to cover up, I'm going to expose the one that we're working on now and cover up everything that happened before. I'm going to pretend this other stuff, like H5, that doesn't even exist yet. All right, so I'm on that line with my postcard, and I'm going to flip this up and make a nice, sharp, straight edge. And that's going to expose our fabric, our excess fabric from our H1 piece. So with my add 1/4 ruler, or if you have just a normal quilting ruler, you just measure 1/4 of an inch from your edge here. I'm going to bop that on. Find my rotary cutter, and we are going to trim that down. And there we go. That's going to be our perfect 1/4 of an inch seam allowance there. So flip that back. All right, that part's done, getting our good seam allowance. Now we need to get our H2 piece. So the same thing as H1, we need a piece of fabric that's as big as the H2, plus, our generous seam allowance. So in this case, for this block, rectangles are a lot easier than triangles. When you get weird shapes like triangles or trapezoids or something, then making sure you have enough of a big blob of seam allowance around makes it just easier. But with a rectangle, those are pretty straightforward. So I'm going to just find a little area that we can get a rectangle out of. Actually, that is a little nick in. Let's maybe go right here. And I'm going to measure a piece that's as big as our square plus a little bit of a generous seam allowance here. So, all right, I'm gonna just, let's get this big scissors out. There, we're gonna go just straight this way. All right, and then I'm gonna go up here. Okay, so that's gonna be my rectangle. Let's just double check. Yep, definitely big enough seam allowance. Oh, that's true. I should cut 2 right away. You're right, Bonnie, because we have H3 here, and that's like the same size basically. So we might as well cut that one as well. Actually, I'm going to just lay this on here, and we'll just trim across. And actually, while I do that, I'm going to give myself 2 straight edges, because we actually need, we needed to trim this piece anyway, because we needed a nice straight edge to match up with our straight edge our seam allowance that we just cut. And since the other one's opposite, let's just get us a good straight edge over there right away too. All right, cruising. I always forget that when you have pieces that are sort of similar or mirrored images, you can kind of cut a few at a time and save yourself some time later. Okay, so we're going to do this piece for H2, and this will be H3 here. So I'm going to match up that straight edge that we just trimmed right here with the straight edge here that we just trimmed, that we cut with our add a quarter ruler. So I'm going to just match those up. There we go. We can do our little test. I'm going to just kind of fold it over at 1/4 of an inch. The idea is, after doing our test, like pretending that we sewed it and ironed it, does it still cover our H2 piece plus the generous seam allowance? And it does. With rectangles, it's easier to visualize that. So I probably won't do a test for all of these rectangles, but we're ready to sew this. So I just need to hold this in place. Let's get down to the sewing machine. All right. Hi, sewing machine. It is kind of time to clean this guy out again. I think he's getting awfully fuzzy here. I think actually sometimes sewing through paper like this kind of puts fuzz places too. All right, so we're gonna sew along that H1, between H1 and H2, that line. But since it's touching a seam allowance up here, we're gonna actually sew into the seam allowance as well. So I'm gonna just kind of extend that line to the seam allowance and start here, sew down, and I'm gonna stop right where it hits another square here, another section. And I'm gonna back tack at both ends, which just kind of locks my stitching in place. So just forward a stitch, backwards a stitch, and then sewing right on that line. I'm always amazed that I don't really always sew as straight as what I think I am. So this is kind of good practice. All right, there we are. Oh, Bonnie says that the dressmaker's scissors that I use, the Kai dressmaker scissors, she thinks those are on mass drop right now. Ugh, I love mine so much. All right, flip that around. I'm just trimming the threads as I go, so I don't have a big mass of threads while we work on this. Oh, you're loving your featherweight for the Splendid Sampler 2 blogs. Oh, that's so awesome, Noeline. That would be a fun little toy to have. I have my husband's great-grandmother's singer, oh gosh, 66, is that what they are? Oh, I got it now, I forget. Singer 66. I'm going to just finger press this, and then I'm going to press it open with the printed side down. But that is basically a larger version of the featherweight, I suppose. Bet you that would work really well on these. Although mine doesn't have a back stitching, so I can't go reverse, so I wouldn't be able to back tack, which is a bummer. I think I have done paper piecing on it before, but I have to rotate it to back tack. But all right, there's our first two pieces. And actually, I think this gold is looking awfully sweet next to this. It's really pretty. I like the two together. All right, so moving on. We're on to H3 now, and luckily we have it already cut. So that's going to make things go faster. Let's grab our postcard here. So now we are going to cover up everything that happened before H3. And in this case, it's the H1 and H2. And we're going to expose H3, and we're going to fold along that line of what happens before H3. So we're not concerned with H4, like whatever's happening down here. It's just what comes before. So in this case, it's the H1, H2 piece, which is really, that H1 line here. The 66 is, oh, is that the difference between a 66 and a 99? Paula, I did not know that, but I knew a 99, a Singer 99 was I knew that was a thing, but I didn't realize that. So 66 is the full size, 99 is a 3/4 size, and the featherweight is the half size. Interesting. Oh man, love it. So I have the full size one, the 66, and it's from 1929 is when it was born. I think the nice thing with Singer is you can actually email them, and you can email them the code or the serial number, and they will tell you everything there is to know about your sewing machine, like when it was born and when it was made and in what city and state, what factory. It's kind of cool. So if you have an old Singer sewing machine, email Singer, find the, I almost said zip code, the serial number on there, and email them, and they'll tell you all about your machine. It's kind of fascinating. All right, so we got our good seam allowance. Let's match it up with our piece here. Okay, again, just because I'm paranoid, I am going to fold this. Oh yeah, we're for sure covering our bases here, so I'm going to just fold it back. Just double checking. All right, let's sew. Oh, yours is a 66 from 1926. Nice. Yes, ours might be siblings. Oh, that's funny. I forget where it's made, like the factory, but I did write it down, and I keep it in a drawer of the cabinet that the sewing machine's in. So I'll have to check on that. But I love that. I love that little history that you can get. So featherweight is half size of that. Oh, dang, that is just adorable and cute. I've never seen a Singer featherweight in person. Oh gosh, now I really want to. I bet you it's just adorable. Nolene says, you would love a featherweight. 100% for sure. I bet you I would. Oh man. I think I got to settle into the sewing machines that I actually have. So remember, I got that really cool Kenmore sewing machine from the 40s that looks all like crinkle. It's got that black matte crinkle finish to it. So I have hardly used that at all, but I love knowing that it's there. It's all folded away in its cute cabinet, but the cabinet is on display in the living room, so it's in a position of like honor. The sewing machine just isn't unfolded and out, but so I'd like to use that a little bit more. And then there's that 60s Kenmore that I got just because it had the case that I wanted for the 40s Kenmore. And they wouldn't sell the cabinet to me without getting this machine too. So I have that machine that I don't think actually works. I have to test it. I haven't even tested it. So I think before I can get another machine, I better like, you know, dig into those a little bit more. It's getting a little ridiculous here. All right, you guys, we got our cute little bit there. Look, I love that little pendulum. It's still got a little detail in there. And I think once we get that orange circle for it, I think it's just gonna, you know, it's gonna pop a little bit more than I was expecting. I mean, it is obviously very, very subtle still, but I think it's not gonna be totally invisible. I think it's cute. So all right, let's move on to H4. So with H4 here, it looks like, again, we can just kind of make a big rectangle, which is easy peasy. We'll need a rectangle that's as big as this H4. I mean, really, I just need a weird trapezoid shape, but you know, it's gonna be way easier to cut a rectangle, and then we'll just trim off these triangles later. So I'm gonna just worry about a rectangle, not worry about making a shape that's exactly this odd shape here. So all right, but first off, we gotta do our little trimming. So get the postcard again. We're on H4, so we're gonna cover up everything that happened before. And we're on that line in between what happened before and the one that we're working on now, which is H4. Flip that back, we can see all the different seam allowances. Let's trim them up. So I'm using the add a quarter ruler. You can use a normal like quilting ruler. You just put it, you know, at a quarter of an inch. You just put the quarter of an inch line with your fold. But I'm telling you, just being able to bop on the add a quarter ruler is so much easier. So it's got a little ledge. There we go, a ledge that you just hit the edge of your postcard and the ledge stops it, but the ledge is a quarter of an inch wide, so it's just perfect. You know, you do need that hard kind of thing for it to land on. So having this postcard underneath my fold is kind of what's stopping it. So I love this process. I think it works great. Okay, flipping that back around, and let's see. Okay, we need a piece that's the size of this H4 plus the generous seam allowance, and we're still on that yellow fabric, which is this fabric. You know, I'm trying to use all the kind of weird areas. Ooh, what about this? Is this big enough? That'd be perfect, this little blobby blob. Well, that's definitely not big enough. So it's as big as our shape, but we don't get any seam allowance. So that's a big no-no. We need the seam allowance. So let's head down here. Got this little phalange hanging. Get rid of that. All right. Oh, and it has a little nick here, but we don't care about that nick because we're gonna cut that off with this triangle anyway. So let's go right here. There we go. And you know, we need a straight edge. Well, let's do this anyway. So we need the straight edge by this fold. So I'm gonna actually just use the add a quarter ruler. We'll get like a quarter of an inch away from this fold, just about. Let me go a little higher, but right there. And we'll just, oop, gosh, that was not straight. There we go. We'll go to about right there. And about right here is the quarter inch mark. So let's go right like that for our piece. So here's that straight edge. That's the straight edge we are going to match up with what we just trimmed here. Do a little test. You know, I'm trying to get it as big as this piece here. And I think we're more than fine. So let's, again, we're working with these rectangles that we're cutting large enough, so we should be good to go. Hey, you guys that have the vintage singers, I'm part of a Facebook group. I think it's called Vintage Singers, actually. Vintage Singers or Vintage 66s and 99s or something. I really like that Facebook group just to see everyone's old pretty machines. So if you are not part of that Facebook group, I enjoy it. So you should check it out. I think it's just vintage singers, maybe. I don't know. I'm sure there's tons of Facebook groups, actually, though, for vintage singer sewing machines. So I'm going all the way through to the seam allowances because this section touches the seam allowances. Oh, Robin, you should definitely email Singer then. So somewhere on your machine, there should be like a little serial number. If it's underneath, or sometimes there's a little plaque on it somewhere. Just be like, find the Singer email from their website probably, I don't know. And just be like, hey, tell me more info about my machine. Here's the serial number. Like, can you tell me what year it's from or what model it is or whatever? And like literally just email them. And they're so good at just emailing back a little bit of history about the sewing machines. It's so cool, like an actual email about it. It's just kind of neat. All right, let's finger press this. Oh, look, it's coming together here. Wow, it almost looks like I sewed crooked, but I think we're gonna just be okay. Doesn't it? I think I totally sewed this crooked. I'm on the line. Oh, maybe it just looks crooked now. Once I trim it out, it won't look crooked anymore. I forgot we didn't trim the outer edge yet. Okay. There we are. Okay, so now we have the two little corners here, and that's it. So let's, I don't even remember what color that's supposed to be. So we're gonna have to get our color code out. That is, we have colored it in purple. So we have 5 and 6. Oh, and this is one of those deals that we can cut them at the same time because they're basically the same. They're just mirrored. So, all right. Okay, purple, that's our brown swirly deal, our tan swirly. Okay, here's that. All right, and actually, since they are mirrored, I'm trying to figure out where to cut them from. Let's go right here. Since they're mirrored, I can actually fold the fabric, and one will be the mirror of the other. So let's match this up on a fold. Okay, again, we need the triangle piece plus the generous seam allowance, but I think we're pretty generous here. Yeah, this is plenty good. I'm just going to cut kind of a straight, oh gosh, rotary cutter is scaring me. We're gonna just go right down the edge like that. Oops, I nicked you guys, sorry. All right, so these are our two pieces. Let's just trim them, and I need that good straight edge. So this is gonna be my actual straight edge that I match up. Oh wow, I left that open. That's really rare for me to have this open. I'm in such a habit of putting the safety on these when I'm not using it, so yikes. All right, the nice straight edges. Oh, actually, I didn't want that as the straight edge. I wanted these as the angles as the straight edge, so let's redo that. Let's cut some nice angles here. And I'm actually skipping ahead. I forgot to do the little postcard deal. Man, oh man. Forgetting to put the safety on, forgetting to go in order here, I don't know. Might be time to quit soon. All right, there we go. Now these both have nice straight edges. There we are. All right, let's do this H5 piece first. Get the postcard out. Cover everything that happened before. Flip this guy up. So this is where we get rid of that excess that we didn't need for that rectangle that came before. Featherweights are teeny weeny and don't take up a lot of space. Oh man, it would be fun. Oh goodness. All right. So I cut this piece huge. So again, just a little flip to test, and obviously I'm covering what I need to. So I don't think I need to rearrange this at all. Let's sew that one. I definitely like cutting, you know, yes, we are wasting tiny, tiny bits of fabric, but it's so much better than the alternative, cutting something just a little too big and having enough, because with paper piecing, if you don't have quite enough, then you gotta basically take it out, and that's difficult to do when you already have perforated all the paper, because then the paper wants to rip. So I always err on the side of doing it a little larger. Gosh, I just had a thought that I sewed the right side to the wrong side of the fabric, but we're good still. Losing my mind here. All right. It's funny, the tiniest sewing machine is the most expensive one. Those ones are those featherweights. When you can find one of those are totally the ones that cost money. That'd be one of the ones that would be awesome to find at like a rummage sale on accident or something. That'd be a find. Oh, I love this. I love when our shapes start to form. So we're getting that lower curve here now because we're we're cutting into our piece with these other lines here. So we're gonna start getting this kind of neat curve, kind of this implied curve here, which I'm excited about. All right, last piece for this one. Yay! And we already have it cut, so let's do the postcard. H6. Trim off all that excess. All right. Oh, Robin, you got yours for $25 at a yard sale. Oh man, that's a good catch. Holy cow. All right, again, let's do our little test. I think we're plenty fine. All right. Oh yeah, those fancy new machines for sure are expensive buggers. All right, let's flip. They are fun toys, though, that's for sure. All right, there we are. Last piece for this section. That one was pretty dang pingless. Actually, this, if you haven't done paper piecing before, but you want like the whole taste of it, like this section, this clock H section, was a really good starter one because we have all these rectangles, which are way easier for paper piecing. It doesn't mess with the brain as much. And then we have some triangles at the end, which are the little bit of a challenge, are the triangles. So this would be a good starter section if you have never done paper piecing before and you're nervous about jumping into the A section, which is the first one what we did. This is the most detailed one. Look at all the triangles and weird angles and stuff in there. So this is definitely a step up from this section as far as difficulty. But yeah, so if you're a little nervous, maybe try the H section before jump into the A section. All right, flip. Okay. Cute. I love it. So here we go. So let's trim this down just because trimming it always cleans it up so nicely. And then we can lay out our clock again. I think this will really add to it. Let's get our little spinny rack. I think we might end it on this piece today. We'll just like keep it a little short this evening. And I'll show you what we have left here. So I'm going to trim it just right a 1/4 inch from this line here. Not this extra here, even though, you know, it is going to be, the 1/4 inch is kind of added in, but just to be accurate, I'm going to go with this border line here. So 1/4 inch away. All right. It's growing. I've never sewn on a Brother sewing machine before, but there's definitely people love the Brother sewing machines. It's almost like people get connected with one brand and then they like sticking with it, which is great. Then you can learn what's happening with it. All right, so here is, see, look how pretty it is now. It's all cleaned up. Let's check it out. I want to put together all of it again. So now we're going to start. Oh yeah, see, look. So now by putting this piece here, now we got this actually kind of this cat head looking shape. So when we sew this together, these will kind of be like this, I'm thinking. Yeah, like that. Once we lose the seam allowance. Oh no, we had a whole section here. This guy goes up top here. So this is kind of forming, you guys can't quite see. So this is kind of forming our circle here where the face of our clock will be. Use these kind of like fun ears on the top of the grandfather clock. Something like that. And then we got these little side bits. It's coming along. Oh, you have a Kenmore just like mine, Gretchen. That's awesome. Okay, coming along for sure. So now we can kind of see that circle. And this is looking cute here too. So the pendulum will go right here. The face of the clock, which will be appliqued on, will go here. So what else do we have? Okay, we're almost done. We just have, I don't remember if it goes here or here, but we got little sides to make this section just a little bit bigger. And then our base. So right there, gosh, that's hardly anything. So tomorrow we will for sure finish the paper piecing. Oh, the paper piecing pieces. But I think we'll be able to start sewing together our sections. So we need to actually sew this whole thing together before we move ahead with the applique pieces. I think we'll get that going for sure. So yeah, so tomorrow, tomorrow's Wednesday still. So tomorrow we'll finish these 3 sections, easy peasy. They'll all hardly have any shapes and they're mostly rectangular. And then we will, we'll start sewing these together. So I think we start out, according to the instructions, we sew these 3 pieces together. And then we sew these, something here. I think we sew these 2 together. Then we sew these guys on the sides. And then the rest shimmy together. So, all right, you guys, that is the plan for tonight. Or for tomorrow, and that will be that. So, all right, you guys, I'm going to flip around, and we'll call it an evening here. Hello, hello. So, all right, moving along with the paper piecing. I love it. So, like I said, tomorrow we'll start actually putting the pieces together. So it's fine to work on all these sections, but there is like one little trick that you need to put the sections together. That will be the pin technique, and we'll go over that a little bit tomorrow. So that is the plan. Awesome, you guys. Post pictures of all your singers in the Penguin and Fish Crafters group if you want, or just your sewing machine in general. That'd be fun. Yeah, share your sewing machine in the Penguin and Fish Crafters group. I'd love to see what you guys do all your magic on. So awesome. I will see you guys tomorrow. I'll get this up on YouTube at Penguin and Fish Movies on YouTube. And we'll keep it here on Facebook at the Penguin and Fish page there. So awesome, you guys. More paper piecing tomorrow at 8:30. So have a great evening, and we'll see you then. Good night.